Hey there, thanks for joining me on Tropical Weather Impact on your Monday. It is September the 29th as we track two named storms off the East Coast. Tropical Storm Imelda forming this weekend, still a weak tropical storm over the Bahamas, but trying to organize, and Hurricane Humberto, which blew up into a Cat 5 this weekend. It's still a major Category 4, an impressive structure here, and you can see this one's way out in the open waters here. And that's the good news as of this Monday morning, is we are confident that these are both going out to sea. Now, Bermuda still going to be watching this, and the East Coast indirect impacts, but still some impacts we're going to talk about with regard to some gusty winds and some rough seas. The Gulf continues to be very quiet. In fact, we had a little spin I'm going to talk about coming up in just a bit, and why there may be some weak low pressure this weekend, but really the focus on these two features out in the Atlantic basin. So Imelda is currently sitting right over the Bahamas as that tropical storm. It is producing some wind, some rain as well, and it's finally getting a little bit better structure to it. It's going to be lifting north for about the next 24 hours before it makes a hard right turn. And again, Humberto is going to stay out to sea as well. So let's talk about the tracks of these two things, because if you were watching on Friday when those first tracks came out for this system, they were taking it into South Carolina. Well, the biggest adjustment, well, there's been two big adjustments. The cone is now going out to sea, and the storm is moving much slower than what was earlier anticipated. And so that's why we've seen such a dramatic shift in this forecast, is Imelda really has not moved over the past 24 hours. Initially, we were thinking it was going to have more movement and it was going to actually come up towards the coast. But look at this. This is by Tuesday morning. We've got Hurricane Humberto, a Category 3, sitting west of Bermuda, well off the East Coast though, and this is Imelda. And notice, as Humberto passes by, what does it do? Well, it basically latches onto Imelda and pulls it out to sea. And so this is really going to work out okay, where we don't have any major problems for the East Coast with regard to wind and rain. There will still be some rough seas though, so that'll be the main thing here. Now, Bermuda, it's a different story for Imelda. This storm is actually going to make that hard right turn and start to travel right at the island. And the cone as of this morning, I mean, quite literally has Bermuda right in the center of the cone. Now, remember, the cone exists for a reason. The storm could easily be anywhere in here, the center of it. But you can see by Wednesday night, we very well could have a hurricane somewhere in the vicinity of the island nation of Bermuda. So it's been a really interesting setup here. We've been talking about that Fujiwara effect. It's when you have two low pressures or tropical systems that are close enough in proximity that they do start to interact. In this case, the interaction is going to be somewhat loose, but the sharp turn is thanks to Humberto passing on by. And so Humberto's the big strong hurricane here. Imelda is the weaker tropical storm right now. And as we go out in time here, you can see once we get into Tuesday afternoon, it's a large wind field. I mean, you've got two named storms, potentially two hurricanes next to each other. You're going to have some strong winds right along the coast. Now, these are going to be very weak, considering there's a major hurricane out in the Atlantic. You're talking some wind gusts right along the Outer Banks, maybe over 30 to 45 miles per hour. As we go out in time, the wind field on this just becomes gigantic. What that means is waves and rough seas all along the entire eastern seaboard, from Florida all the way up to maybe up to Long Island here. And so I really do think it can't be overemphasized, the risk for rip currents, life-threatening rip currents here. And so we're expecting those seas to really rock and roll as we get into tonight and tomorrow. You can see widespread 5 to 10 foot waves just off the coast. Now, further out, closer to the stronger hurricane, you're talking about waves maybe approaching 15 to 25 feet. Again, as we go out in time, the waters are going to stay choppy for a big portion of the week. Here we are Wednesday into Thursday, and you can see the Atlantic as a whole is still very disturbed. Meanwhile, the Gulf, well, it's fairly quiet. We don't have much going on. The winds are going to be extremely light through at least Wednesday in the Gulf region. So why the big changes in the forecast? Why is Imelda expected to make the turn? Well, overall, two things are different than what models were thinking on Friday. On Friday, they thought this little upper level low over the deep south was going to be a lot stronger, which was going to help pull this system further north faster. Well, that upper level low was extremely weak, and so models oversold the upper level low. You've also got our ridge of high pressure out here. So with this upper level low being weaker, there's not a lot of tug on Imelda to go north. What's going to happen here is Humberto there on the right with the 4 is going to pass by and allow an opening for that system to come in behind it. You can see this ridge really weakens, and this type of setup, you can see it pulls in right behind it. So basically, Humberto is creating a path for Imelda to come in right behind it and take a similar path in the long-term forecast. So that's what's going on with our 2 named storms off the East Coast. The East Coast is breathing a big sigh of relief. There will still be some heavy showers at times associated with the outer limits or outer bands of Imelda's moisture field, but flooding is not going to be a widespread issue for the Carolinas. This is not a repeat of Helene for those areas. Now in the Gulf, I was talking about this morning. We've had this little spin, an area of low pressure form this weekend in the central Gulf. Now what you're looking at here shows you there's no showers or storms associated with this spin. Therefore, it's not a tropical system. We'll watch it as it slowly drifts south, but right now it just doesn't look like it's probably going to do much. So if you do notice that spin, don't get too nervous about that. What we're actually going to be watching in the Gulf for potential not tropical development, but for some rain will happen towards this weekend. So you can see here's our 2 systems off the East Coast. Here's this little area of low pressure. There's been a couple showers, but even this model's overdoing the rain with it this morning. As we go out in time, that area of low pressure is drifting south into the Bay of Campeche and down towards Mexico. Meanwhile, we have this old boundary that's going to be draped across the northern Gulf. That'll start by the end of this week. That will be a focal point for some showers and thunderstorms, which means we could start to see some gradual low pressure form. Now, this low pressure trying to form is mostly tied to an upper level low spinning near us, which means this really isn't truly a tropical low. It's not a tropical cyclone that turns into a storm or hurricane, but it's still a low pressure. It's an area of spin with some showers and some thunderstorms. Now, this is Friday. You can see a lot of the activity on Friday is probably out in the Gulf waters, maybe a few coastal showers across the region on Friday. As we go out in time to Saturday and Sunday, there's a lot of uncertainty on how this is going to unfold. The European model has a broad weak low pressure in the northern Gulf, sending us some rain by the Saturday and Sunday time frame. If you look at the GFS model, it also creates an area of low pressure in the northern Gulf, but further off towards the east and brings it up into Florida and keeps us on the drier side. And so this is the big dispute right now in the forecast this weekend is if there is a low pressure forming, what is it going to do? And it's not going to be moving very quickly. It's going to be drifting around. And so if it drifts further this way, then maybe we have a better shot of rain this weekend. If it stays further out in the eastern Gulf and maybe lifts to Florida, we would be on the drier side. So if you're in New Orleans or surrounding areas, I know the Mississippi coast has cruising the coast kicking off this weekend. We'll put our chance of rain right now at 30% in this area Saturday and Sunday. The big caveat being there could still be adjustments in the chance for rain based on what this area of low pressure is trying to do at the end of the day. Again, don't really expect this to be anything fully tropical. The waters are plenty warm. Wind shear is not going to be overdone, but this would be mostly a non-tropical low trying to form. So as we go out in as we go out in time here with our GFS and European model, you can see you've just got this large area of some disturbed weather along an old frontal boundary Saturday into Sunday, some areas of low pressure, maybe multiple areas of low pressure trying to spin up along that. And you can see as we get into the Sunday and Monday, this is where they start to separate, with the GFS thinking we get that unorganized low lifting north, whereas the European model has a low pressure lifting a little bit towards Houston or southwest Louisiana. That would be a better rain chance for us more than likely. Something going that direction would bring us some nicer weather overall. And so we are split right now on exactly what is going to happen. Absolutely no one canceling plans this weekend with what we're seeing right now out in the tropics. So I don't think this is a storm developing and getting a name, but just an unorganized low. By the way, we've really been checking some names off as of recent. We have had 3 hurricanes this season. And what's interesting is every single hurricane has been a 4 or a 5. We've had 2 Category 5s this year. We had 2 last year. That has not happened back-to-back seasons, 2 Cat 5s, since like the 1932-1933. So it is extremely rare to have 2 Cat 5s in back-to-back seasons, and we have done it this year. And it just shows you that while the tropics were extremely quiet at times, when they ramp up some of these storms, they are big. We've just been so fortunate this year that every single storm has basically gone out to sea. At least the strong storms have all gone out to sea. And we have yet to have a named storm in the northern Gulf this hurricane season. That is so extremely rare, and so we're counting our blessings with that. By the way, next name on the list, we've got a Jerry and a Karen. I'm sure at some point we will check these off. Remember, October can still be a very active month in the tropics, especially if those conditions are just right. That's going to do it for your tropical weather impact on this Monday, September the 29th. We will have the latest update for you tomorrow as we continue to track Tropical Storm Imelda and Hurricane Humberto. Thanks for joining me.